Hi, Matthias.
Hi, Amid.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining. I love your
Okay.
background. Is that a legend?
Yes, exactly. It's the sketches that have been done by Nicolas, which is one of our exterior designer for a legend, in fact.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Thank you so much for joining to this discussion. We are super honored to have you on the show. And it was quite a time we were chasing creative people from other industries like yourself, from Peugeot, from industrial design, product designs, and we want to continue these series to have creative people like yourself on the show as well. So it's really great honor to have you on the show. Why? Can you please introduce yourself to our audience and generally talk about your background and tell us exactly who is Matthias Hossann?
Okay, so first, thanks for the invitation. It's a real pleasure and honor to be part of this chat. So, just to introduce myself, first of all, I'm a French designer working in the car industry for almost 20 years. In 2022, and in fact, as you just mentioned, I start to learn applied arts. In fact, during my studies, and in fact, I quickly go into a design school, named Strate College Design, which is an industrial design school with a specification of automotive. So I learn car design, in this school. And why car? In fact, because for me it is probably one of the most complicated, industrial object to produce. And also this is an object that represents this notion of freedom. So I think it was a great combination. And naturally there is all the desire, surrounding this object that was really, really interesting to work. So that's why, in fact, I was really interesting to go through this car design. So I think it was the perfect object, that mix apply art, but also techniques, and I think that's why, in fact, I learn car design, and now I'm at this position.
Yeah, awesome, great. And can you talk about your experience of 19 years of being at Peugeot and how the company has evolved during this 19 years, let's say 20 years?
Yeah, in fact, 19 years at the ex-PSA Group. In fact, it's kind of amazing because when I start, in 2000.
It's not now PSA Group?
No, in fact, no, we call Stellantis because, since we merged with the FCA, the ex-FCA Group, now it's becoming Stellantis Group, which is a big automotive group. But when I start, 19 years ago, in fact, there was only two brands in this group. There was Citroën and Peugeot, and I started at Citroën. And it was a perfect timing because there was kind of reshuffling, everything in Citroën. And Jean-Pierre Plouet, who is now taking the leadership of all the European brand for Stellantis, hired me to work, for the Citroën brand. So I started in 2002, two brands. And in fact, as you mentioned, I've got the great opportunity to go into China to set up the design studio in Shanghai in 2008. It was fantastic because it was kind of a startup. Just three French guys has been sent, to China, and we were setting up a design studio with some Chinese talent. So at the end, we were almost like 50% working over there with a young, talented Chinese designer. So it was fantastic because we were working like a startup, honestly. It was a really new mindset. And what was really fantastic also, it reminded 2008, China was really booming. I just arrived at the end of the Olympic game, in Beijing. And it was the beginning of the construction of the Universal Exhibition in Shanghai. So it was a really, really fantastic timing. And at this time, DS brand born, in fact. So I was working for Citroën and DS. And when I coming back, in 2013, I take the leadership of the concept car and advanced design. That means the mid-term and long-term vision for Peugeot.
So when is this exactly?
2013. 2013, I came back to France, taking the leadership of the advanced design and concept car for the Peugeot brand. And in 2020, I'm taking the position of design director for Peugeot. So now I'm in charge of short-term, mid-term, and long-term vision for Peugeot. And during this time, what is fantastic is we started two brands. DS born after the PSA Group, purchased Opel. So we have four brands within the PSA Group. And last year, in fact, there is this merger between FCA and PSA that become Stellantis Group with more than 14 brands. So it's a huge, automotive group with a fantastic brand, like Peugeot, Citroën, Alfa Romeo, and many more, Maserati. So I think between this almost 20 years of experience, every year was different. And the fact that now we are becoming Stellantis, it's really fantastic for a designer.
Awesome. Great. And how, in the last 20 years, you've been working with this company, in terms of design, how the design was evolved? Can you talk about that as well?
But I would say, depending of the brand, but the design evolved quite a lot, in fact, in terms of aesthetic. But why? Also because the technology, evolved a lot. I think now we are living in the automotive industry a revolution that probably we never lived since the beginning of the automotive invention. So I think it's really interesting for us to see how the technology and the new usage and new experience, will affect the aesthetic of a brand. In the past 20 years, many changes, in terms of technology, but also in terms of technology, how to conceive the product. So there is big change on the way we conceive, in fact, the product and the tool we are using also to conceive it. So this naturally affects the aesthetic of the product by itself. So, and the pace also, because, when I start, it was definitely not the same pace, to produce and to conceive a car. And now we are much more fast on the way we are thinking to a new car, but also building the car by itself.
Awesome, great. Quite recently, at the beginning of the 2021, Peugeot has changed its brand identity. Can you talk about this change? What was it for?
In fact, we were working for that for some time, honestly, because you cannot change, the identity like that. But as maybe you
the company is almost 150, right?
Yes,
150 years old.
Exactly. You know that we are one of the oldest car company in the world. In fact, one of the oldest car brand, in the world. So first of all, we changed completely our product, and there is a clear move of high-end product. As we have maybe seen with the 3008, 208, 2008, 508. So we find it was the right moment to change our identity, to really embody, this high-end positioning that we now have with our product, and we find it was the right timing to do it. But also the right timing because now we are much more working with this digitalization. And in fact, that's why also we rework, this emblem with this flat design, aspect, which is much more consistent with the new tools, we are using, in terms of digitalization. So on one side, there is this illustration of high-end positioning. On the other end, also, I think it was much more consistent with the way we are communicating now. And also, it was a good opportunity to build a bridge between our strong DNA, and as I was mentioning, we are one of the oldest car brand in the world, but at the same time, we are really future forward, thinking. So that's why there is this connection with the past, clearly, but at the same time, in terms of graphics and in terms of all brand identity, because this is not only a logo, but we rework all the brand, the global brand identity to make it consistent. Again, to be really future forward. So it's a bridge between our heritage, but also about the visions that we want to bring for the future, for Peugeot in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Great. And this new logo is going to be on the cars after this as well, right? Or yeah.
In fact, this new logo, the first introduction, in fact, of this new logo has been on the 9X8, which is a future car for Le Mans. Which is a racing car. So we introduced that into a teaser a few months ago. But on the production car, the first car that we love this new identity, it's a 308 that has been presented last year, and the car is already in the dealership right now. So now you can buy a car with this new identity, which is 308.
And what about 3008?
Sorry?
I love this car. What about 3008?
Yeah.
I love this version of the 3 generation. Is it going to be including the new logo?
In fact, in terms of timing, so we launched 3008, with a new front face. But in terms of timing, we found that 308 was a good car to embody this new logo. But no, you will have this new identity naturally on all the new products that we will deliver.
Probably after 2022.
For
this new logo going to all cars.
Yes.
Probably will happen after 2022, right?
Oh, exactly. In fact, starting from now, because now we already have it. Yeah, we already have it on the 308, on the new 308 that we present at the end of last year. So now, starting from now, you will have this new identity on all the range of the product.
Yeah, I was planning to buy the 3008, so I'm just gonna wait to buy with new logo. Great. So can you talk? What are your thoughts on autonomous cars? I know you have designed the E-Legend, which is in your background. What are your thoughts on autonomous cars, and what are Peugeot's plan for the future of autonomous cars?
In fact, autonomous car is, I would say, this is the next automotive revolution, because now we talk a lot about electrification, but you're right that autonomization, it's a real revolution, because I think almost all manufacturers will be implementing this technology. And I think what is really interesting for a brand is how we can imagine the experience of a car, through autonomization, autonomization. Sorry. And in fact, that's why we illustrate that, through some concept car like E-Legend, but also Instinct concept car, because there is many way of thinking about autonomy. You can think about pure pod, it's a pure usage, vehicle. But we think at Peugeot, because we are Peugeot, we want to merge this technology with some emotional product. That's why, for example, E-Legend was a kind of manifesto, not a retro manifesto, but also manifestos that I think we can merge some brand design DNA, and also with this kind of technology, because what is really interesting with autonomous car, is the fact that you can choose, you can decide to drive your car or to be driven by your car. And as far as you are doing that, you can have almost two kind of architecture inside the car. So already we are already working a lot, inside our car through the iCockpit concept. This means these small steering wheels, and this information above the steering wheel. But we think that in the future, we need to spend even more time and more inside the car. We call it almost the third space, because it's a new architecture that we can conceive. So as a designer, it's fantastic, because it's not anymore to design just a car. You design a space, a new space with a new usage. So all the experience that we can live inside the car, it will be quite close to the one you can have at home, for example, but it's something really new. And again, this is something we experiment with E-Legend, also in Instinct concept car, because we have seen many concept car, with autonomous experience, which looks really cool, like some robots. And we find that you can implement technology within a really caring atmosphere, really warm atmosphere. That's why, for example, in E-Legend, we mix this wood, velvet, but also at the same time, this high-end technology. So fantastic opportunity, strong challenge also, because, as Peugeot, we are a high-end generalist car brand. We have to make sure so that this autonomous car can be affordable. And this is a challenge also, because it's more easy, you know, to implement technology. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that people can afford it. So there is some challenge also through autonomous car, and also all the challenge also through all the global ecosystem, because at the end of the day, we need to.
Can you talk a little bit about these challenges? What kind of challenges do you see in front of autonomous cars?
But you know, the challenge
in terms of pricing or in terms of technical issues, or.
But I think the first one will be the pricing, because we already have some prototypes, you know, of autonomous car, so we can make it work right now. But there is a high level of price, you know, that the customer have to pay, you know, to have this technology. So this is something we need still to work on, to make sure that this technology can be affordable for most of our customers. So this is, I would say, the first challenge. And after, it's all about, you know, the global ecosystem, because as far as you put some autonomous car, you know, in the street, you will have to manage, you know, an environment where you will have traditional car and autonomous car also, and how, you know, all this ecosystem, you know, will live together in terms of behavior, because when you have a traditional car, you have one behavior specific to every driver, and when you have autonomous car, we believe, you know, you will have a less accident because the behavior will be controlled by the machine by itself. So it's a challenge also to see how all this can live together. And also there is this challenge. This is not a design challenge, but this is how to define the responsibility if something happens, an accident, for example, in terms of insurance, how we manage, you know, the responsibility within the car. So still many things to think about, and we are definitely working on. But again, coming back to the design, it's a fantastic opportunity, because we can really think the interior of a car differently than a traditional car. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us.
Yeah, awesome, great. And we were having a deep research regarding the autonomous cars designs, and these cars designs are quite different than the normal cars. And I don't know, because maybe it's because of the electrification or autonomization. I don't know, but what makes these car designs different than normal cars?
I would say, in fact, autonomous car, you can have autonomous car for almost every kind of car. But again, I think it's an opportunity for a brand to really differentiate one to the other. You can imagine having some really hedonist experience, a little bit like e-Legend, or having a much more collaborative one, like a pod, you know. So I hope in terms of design, we can see much more differentiation in terms of typology of car in the future, because depending on the brand and what the brand wants to express, we can maybe imagine having much more differentiation from one brand to the other, depending also of the target user, you know, you want to address. Some people maybe in the future still want to have their own car, you know, to have their own experience, and maybe some of them want to share also the car. So again, you will not think the interior of the car, but also the exterior aesthetic in the same way. Again, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to make much more differentiation between all the brands than today.
Yeah, and also regarding the e-Legend car, my first question is, from how many years Peugeot decides to release a concept car? Is it because of, for example, 3-4 years as you try to see what kind of new technologies are coming into the industry, or what is the concept behind these concept cars to release?
In fact, just in terms of timing, when we work on a concept car, it's really, really short. Working on a production car, it's around 4 years. Working on a concept car is around...
Because these concept cars are limited versions and they're not produced on scale, right?
No, unfortunately, it's just one. There is one concept car,
Just one?
Yes, just one car. And I'm really happy because I have this car just in the 10 meters from me. The car is in the studio, so I'm really lucky. But when...
Have you drive it?
Yes, in fact, we can drive it. In fact, just on a closed, road, because it's a prototype. Huh? But when we work on the concept car, it's around 1 year. from the brief, that we're doing with the brand to the car that you have seen on the motor show. It's around 12 to 18 months to work on the concept car. But the idea behind a concept car is just not only an object just to please designer. It's a brand manifesto. And in fact, because this car has been presented in 2018 at the Paris Motor Show, and when we present this legend, it was kind of manifesto of our vision of how we can embody technology, and that means electric car, autonomization, but at the same time we can cross it through a strong brand DNA. Because at that time, if you remind, we have seen many prototypes which looks like a pod. The interior were really cold and looks like a dentist room, white, without any, warm atmosphere.
Right.
And we find at Peugeot, we still want to deliver a much more caring atmosphere, much more emotional, sensation when we drive on, when we are being driven by our car. That's why we conceived Legend. It was a great opportunity also because it was the 50th anniversary of the 504 coupe.
Oh,
so merging,
yeah, it was inspired by 504.
Yes,
right.
There was a link, with this 504. But again, I think it was really interesting to merge, our strong DNA through this technology to create an experience. Because, in fact, in the future, the challenge for us is to provide some new aesthetic, but also to deliver new experience to the user.
That's right. What is your most favorite car? Which version?
It's a difficult question because there is many. There is not only one car. But at Peugeot, there is plenty because again, a strong history. The 504 naturally. For 504 coupe, it's fantastic. The 205, I think it was a great car, super successful in Europe, especially in France, and all the racing car for Peugeot, because we have incredible, like the 205 T16, the 905. I'm quite lucky because we have one 905 in the studio, and I think this car is really fantastic.
Which one is the best you have designed, do you think?
I'm proud of Legend, and again, it's not only me because it's
But it's not available for everyone.
Yes.
Just name one of them that we have tried.
Maybe the one I'm most proud of would be the future one, because we are still working for the future, and okay. I think we will have a nice surprise for you in the future.
Okay, awesome, great. And what is your own car?
I'm a lucky guy because
if I may ask.
Yes, I have a 508 PSA. The PSA is the section. Which is fantastic. It's a fantastic car to drive. I drove it during this winter holiday for quite some times, and honestly, it's a fantastic car.
And you always use Peugeot's cars, no other brand?
Yeah.
Is there any kind of obligation or?
But I think I'm lucky because I'm working for Peugeot, so it's kind of normal, that I'm driving Peugeot. But honestly, it's not an obligation, really, because the products are really nice. And again, the experience. As soon as you drove a Peugeot with this iCockpit concept, it's so different from the other that as soon as you are used to that, it's difficult to go to something else.
No, that's absolutely right. I've been in 208, a 206 as well, in Iran. So 208 is a fantastic car, and I fell in love with that. And I'm planning to buy the next version, maybe a 208 or 3008 one, because I really love the comfortness of the car, and everything was really fine. And how do you interact with your customers? Because, for example, you see some errors, or you see some kind of difficulties for users to use any kind of features that you add to the car or products. How do you interact with the customers and consider their comments and feedback and apply them in your next version of, or the next model of, or the new model of any car? What is this interaction? How does it process?
In fact, when we develop a production car, in fact, we have different period, when we test the car, and quite soon in the process, of development, we have some tests with some people that can judge first the proportion, just to have the feeling, the proportion. And the more time we spend on the project, we test in a super details to see how they will interact, and we get this feedback, and to make sure that when we launch the car, everything is almost resolved from their feedback. So we have external clinic tests, but also internal, because internally we use, to work with the colleagues, to make some tests also internally, and to see how they react, especially when we developed the iCockpit. It was a real breakthrough compared to the traditional, interior. And again, we are doing many clinic tests to see how people react when we propose something, especially different, from the competitor. So we try to do this kind of interaction with a customer.
Yeah, awesome, great. Thank you. What kind of design software or computer softwares do you use for design?
But as you can imagine, we are working with a digital process now, and especially in this COVID period, as many designers, many colleagues are working in remote work. So now we are working like classical, Photoshop, Illustrator, all this traditional, software, 2D software. But as you can imagine, we are working a lot with the 3D software, many 3D software, and one major change that have been done in the previous year is now we are really working with virtual reality, with some helmet, and this is fantastic tool because we can work with Italian team, American team, Chinese team, and in a collaborative way. So it's fantastic because it's really helpful in terms of communication, and especially when you talk about aesthetics, design, surfaces, it's much more easy to communicate with them. So now on the daily basis, we are using this tool clearly, and I would say honestly, due to this pandemic, situation, this was a great help, and great tools to work on. So more and more through digitalization. At the same time, we are still working with some physical model just to see if at the end of the day what we develop through the 3D it's okay, because at the end of the day we are selling real car to customer, not a 3D car. But more and more we are working with digitalization, and the tools are evolving quite fast. So the team are really aware of the last 3D tools that we can integrate in the process.
And are there any other any software, for example, just for VR that only is specialized only for car design, and you use inside the office, not only to connect with other parts of the world? Like, how does that work? Is there any kind of those software?
In fact, we use some internal software, specific to the VR that have been developed specifically for us. But in terms of hardware, we are using like HTC, or Pimax or Varjo, for example. We are using those brands, in terms of
goggles, like
yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, awesome, great. And who are some of other designers that from other companies maybe that you admire their work?
There is many, honestly, because there is many talents, through the world. But as a designer, for me,
and I think that you are all connected somehow to each other, because these creative or pioneering designers are somehow having group discussions, or they are friends with each other. Yeah, you can continue.
Yes. There is many designer, but I think what is really important when you do car design, but not only, is to be really curious about many fields, of creativity. So at the same time, I admire, like some chef, some cook chef, some architecture, some fashion designer. I was thinking about Alexander McQueen. I was super impressed, by the work of Alexander McQueen. or Nicolas Guesquière,
Awesome.
you know, for example, at Louis Vuitton, I think the work he was doing
Yes.
was fantastic. Even and now Virgil Abloh, you know, I think it was really,
Yes.
really great what was doing.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And
He
honestly,
passed away.
I'm a big fan of architecture. It's a bit classical, but Tadawando, you know, I think, you know, the way, you know, he construct, you know, the space, I think it's fantastic. Big fan of Wang Shu and Liu Wenliu, you know, from the Amateur Architecture Studio. I think this Chinese architect is fantastic, and the relation with the material, I found it really, really inspiring, especially in the times that sustainability, you know, is becoming more and more important in the car industry. So many creative, you know, that I really admire, and in the car industry there is also many strong talents. So
Yes, awesome, great. And do you have any mentors like you follow or you have or inspires you?
in fact, there is some person, you know, like Michel Armand. It's a really old, not the designer, but he's a guy who designed the interior of the Citroën SM, which was a UFO, you know, at this time, Citroën CX. And I was really lucky to have this guy as a teacher, you know, when I was at school, and he really teach me not to design and to sketch, you know, but it was more about the global philosophy about car design, about aesthetics also. So really, this guy was my mentor, I would say. And Jean-Pierre Plouet, which is now a big boss, you know, is leading, you know, all the car. I think it's really amazing because every time we have some discussion with Jean-Pierre, he's already point, you know, things which is, and he knows how to challenge a team, and now he's leading all the European brand, you know, so Fiat, Alfa Romeo, Peugeot, DS, Citroën, Lancia. So he's head of all those brands in terms of design. So I think those two guys was really, really important for me when I start.
Yeah, awesome, great. Thank you so much. I'll just go through a couple of questions from our audience. And our friend Anil says, what do you think about metaverse? Will Peugeot do something in metaverse world?
It's a really great question because with the team we are discussing a lot about that, and coming back, you know, to the discussion through the new tools, I think we are almost already in the metaverse. You know, when we walk, you know, between America,
Yes.
Italy, France, China. So, but you're right that I think it's really, really interesting because this can open also a new way of communicating, new aesthetic also, because you have much more freedom, you know, compared to the real world. So we are really, really interested by that.
Yeah, I mean, is there any project ongoing or not?
I cannot tell too much about that,
Okay.
but I can just tell you that we are really, really interested by this.
Okay. Don't worry. It's okay. Thank you. Okay, I think you almost answered all the questions that are written in the question box, and I'll just slide into my last question. What kind of advice would you like to share with young professionals and designers?
It's the most difficult one because it's always difficult to give advice. I feel old designer compared to the young designer that I have in the studio. But I would say, as a designer of a young creative, first is about passion. Because without passion, it's difficult to create. So first is passion. Always keep the eye open and be really future forward thinking. I think this is really important, especially now in a world where everything is connected. But at the same time, as a designer, I think we need to provide and conceive an experience, you know, that enhance people's life. I think this is our responsibility as a designer. And also, whatever the creative field you are, you know, I think we need to provide a beauty and emotion to the world, because we can't provide pure functional object. But I think what makes a difference also is to provide some beauty and a real emotional, you know, product to the world. So not sure it's in some advice, but this is the way, in fact, I try to work on the daily basis and to always have this in mind.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And it was such a nice advice. And also, I appreciate the conversation. And I'm afraid there are no more questions from our audience. And I appreciate your time. Is there any final word you want to add to this conversation?
No, I mean, first, again, thank you for the invitation, and it was fantastic. So thanks for the invitation, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to have you in the show in the future.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.